Welcome to Voices of Supported Employment, the podcast by Durham Enable. Each episode highlights the stories of individuals with disabilities, job coaches, and employers all working together to build a more inclusive workforce. We explore the impact of supported employment, showcasing how job coaches empower individuals and how employers can create disability-confident organisations. Join us as we break down barriers, inspire change, and work towards a future where everyone can thrive in the world of work. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This is part 2 of our conversation about the 5-stage model of supported employment. If you missed part 1, you might find it useful to pause this episode here and go ahead and listen to last week's episode, then come back and listen to this one. Just before we get started this week, I want to let you know that there is a link in the show notes of this episode to the registration form for our upcoming Inclusive Employer Network, which will take place on Thursday, the 12th of June, 2025. We talk a lot about this event in this episode, and once you've listened and you think that it's something that you might be interested in attending, please follow the link and sign up to book your place. In this episode, we also talk about our Lunch and Learn sessions, and in the show notes, you can find a link to our Durham Enable YouTube channel where all of the recordings of the sessions can be found. Right. Again, another point that we could just talk about all day. Where are we up to? Number 3, employer engagement. Let's talk about that. We've been doing a lot of that recently as well. A lot of that.
Yeah. Do you mind if I kick things off for this? I don't think you find many supported employment practitioners that come into this sector because they love working with employers. They love engaging with employers. I think a lot of us come into this sector because of what we believe in and our values, but it's ultimately a lot of our backgrounds are working with the people that we support and coming from that type of background. So employer engagement at times is one of those stages where we essentially, as a service and as a management team, we need to invest as much time and effort into this point through training and development and support for the staff team, because job seekers, the people that we support, are one customer. The employer is the second customer, and that's really, really important that we constantly remind each other of the importance of local businesses and local employers, that they also have needs that we, as an employment service, need to find ways to fulfill. And we often fulfill those needs by placing skilled people with huge amounts of ability and talent into these workforces, into these businesses, giving businesses the best possible person for their business, for that job. But at times it takes a long time sometimes to build up that rapport, build up that relationship with the employer. So we've just talked at length about vocational profiling, and ultimately that is about building rapport and trust with the person that we support. We have to do exactly the same for our local businesses and employers. We have to invest the same amount of time and effort into them because they're equally as important. We tend to do that through, your traditional methods. You've got to do a little bit of cold calling. You've got to find ways, a little bit like we do with engaging job seekers. We have to embed ourselves into our local communities, that power of being local. We essentially want our job coaches, our practitioners, to be known faces and names around the local area in which they work in, because they represent local people and they also represent local businesses. So that's really important. And you do that by attending various networking events, see where employers go to have those types of conversations, knock on doors, walk into shop fronts, call people up, use social media, use LinkedIn, all manner of ways, points of contact that you can find to make that initial contact with that business. Once you've done that, it's really then about more a case of asking them questions about their business. What challenges do they face? What successes have they had recently? by having that sort of open dialogue and that conversation, what you begin to find is ways to bring supported employment into the fold, into that conversation, and go, this is essentially what we can be doing for you. We are a free local service that is about matching people to local jobs, vacancies that exist within that area, within that sector, to give you, the employer, the best possible person to do that job, and to make that sustainable, to ensure that you're filling your workforce with a talent of people that are going to stay within your business as well, which is hugely important. And begin to have those conversations about inclusivity as well, which is really, obviously that's, I think, on the lips of a lot of people right now, which is great. And we're certainly sort of riding the wave of that. I think that's really important. But some of that comes down to us. I think, we're the ones that have driven that conversation locally. We as a service have the ability to run our own networking events, our own job fairs. We've recently launched an inclusive employer network that brings employers together into a space, even just for a couple of hours every couple of months, to have a safe conversation about inclusive work practices, inclusive recruitment practices, give an opportunity to employers and businesses to say, you know what, I could possibly be better at this within my workplace. How could I be better? Well, actually, there is a network of people that sit within this area or within this sector that are doing some brilliant work that you could be learning from. And then it's not just ourselves as a service to say, this is what we can do for you. This is how you can be better. This is the support and the training that we can be providing you. Actually, you've got other employers, other businesses going, this is how you do it, and this is how you use Durham and able to be better at that. With employers championing your service, it's just so powerful.
Mel, we speak to our teams, our job coaches, who we line manage a lot, and there are some who are more comfortable with this, this stage, with doing the employer engagement and going out and speaking to people, and others not so much. What are the kinds of things that we're telling job coaches around how they can approach this work and helping them to build their confidence? Because it's not a super easy thing, and we're all different, in the way in which we approach things. Some people are just naturally more outgoing than others, and it can be quite difficult sometimes when you turn up at a business, even a small business, and you're met with some real hostility sometimes about what it is you're trying to say. So what kind of conversations have you had with coaches around supporting them to keep trying to build their skills around the employer engagement side of things?
I think it's really important for the coaches to play on their own strengths. So you're right, everybody's got different qualities and strengths and skills, and some people find it easier than others to walk into an employer and have those conversations. But I think it's about looking at the wider picture. So actually we've got lots of people who are already in employment or are accessing services where those conversations can come much more naturally. So actually utilize the network that you've already built. So yes, we've got somebody in employment. Actually, why don't you have a conversation about any other roles that they might have available? Use that to build your confidence in talking to employers about the service and inclusive recruitment, because that's an easy win, because they know, they can see the positivity of working with a supported employment service. And then once you begin to develop your skills in that, then maybe go out and reach into the wider community. But learn as well from your colleagues. There's other people in the team who will have skills in particular areas. Go along with them, buddy up, spend sessions together where we can do employer engagement as a team, just to try and build the confidence, I suppose, of the people who do find it challenging. I think that's...
And it is practice, isn't it? It's like
developing,
trying to grow muscles.
And actually,
you just have to keep doing the reps.
But when it comes, those moments of sort of joy on the job coaches' faces where they're like, I did it. Yeah. And like, look at what you've achieved. And like, that is so wonderful. And you're like, I told you you could. Yeah. You just got to have the conversation. You just got to believe in yourself and believe in what we do. And, you know, lots of people ask for a script. And I just think it comes so much more naturally when you're just having a conversation, going in and learning about the employer. Yeah. You're not maybe going in with...
you're going to read this off the sheet. And you can have a template. I guess you can have prompts that that will help you.
Something that I learned from Ramsay, actually, being my line manager as a coach, was setting yourself almost a goal. So that bronze, silver and gold, like what do you want to get out of this engagement? Actually, if you just get a number or a name of a contact, that's a win. Like, that's good. You're not going in... You know, sometimes people are going into these conversations thinking that they need a job at the end of it, where actually it's about building that connection, building those networks and starting to build those relationships. So actually that can take time. So yes, if you get a number or an email address, you're onto a winner. Then you can start that conversation. You can go and meet somebody and then it grows from there. Yeah. So just kind of setting yourself some internal barriers with that as well, some internal sort of goals.
And I think that in the inclusive employer network that you spoke about there, that we've just launched, we've had two now. Actually, that is actually a really good way for job coaches to meet employers, because it's a captive audience, isn't it? We've got them. You don't have to go into their store or into their place of business. Actually, they're at our event, and even if you're just sort of sitting next to someone or on the table and just saying hello and just swapping, details, that's like, that can be the start of connections that you can make. And it's a little easier as well, because we've created this kind of safe bubble where you can do that. And there's others of us around as well who can support.
And actually you can use that as a tool. Like, actually, if you're engaging with a new employer, come along to this event, come and hear from the other employers what we're all about. They'll tell it much better than I can because they've lived it. So I think like we've got like the lunch and learns as well, are really useful for employers. It's a really good tool for the job coaches to have things that we can sort of refer the employers onto.
It's about that wider offer, isn't it, of the service. It acts as the hook of, like, you're managing your own expectations, like you sort of said. You go in and you make that first initial contact, maybe you're at the beginnings of building that relationship with that employer. You should never have that sort of thought process of like, I've got to walk out of this meeting with a job, and haven't secured a working interview for someone, because you're just setting yourself up to fail. But actually being armed with that wide-ranging offer that the service has available, free training that we can provide around disability awareness or how to recruit and retain neurodivergent talent within your workforce. That's a real hook for employers of like, they may say, yes, I can be better at this, but it'd be great to have some more training for the workforce. Well, that's an offer that we can provide. Or if you're not too sure, come along and do and dial into one of our lunch and learns that we run on a monthly basis. That will give you a little bit more understanding of supported employment as a whole, and then come along to that inclusive employer network. It's just gradually building up that relationship and that rapport, until as well the business is also ready. You've got to wait for that. They've got to also be in a position to have jobs. They may not have any jobs at that moment. They may not be recruiting. It might not be the right time for them financially. So that doesn't mean that relationship stops. It's you've got to keep that rapport going.
And they're learning the whole time, aren't they? They're learning through just attending the employer networks, even if they're not ready, but they're still learning about this whole thing that is inclusion and disability confidence. All of that they're learning the whole time. And I think you can look out sometimes at the world in general and think, people aren't interested. People aren't interested in, me coming and saying, I've got this person who has all these strengths, yes, but has these challenges too. People are busy. People don't have time. Actually, we find that there's more people who are interested than not. And it's just a case of the way in which we
we put it across, we sell it, I guess, and talk about what we do. But like you say, the employers who are on board and who we're working with and who have employed, lots of our job seekers, they speak about this, don't they? They're the ones who we're listening to their stories and saying that's exactly why we're doing what we do. Yeah.
You asked the one question: what does an employer, what does a business owner want? They want the right people. They want motivated people within their workforce that they can work with. We can provide that. A whole host of people.
Yeah.
Huge talent pool within the service that can do that. Yeah.
Awesome. So number 4, job matching.
So this is very much built off all of that employer engagement work that we've just talked about. And one thing that we didn't mention at all within employer engagement is, we do all that vocational profiling with the person. We have to do it with the employer. A great way to do this with an employer is using a job analysis. Let us come into your workplace and let us break down all of the roles and responsibilities and all of the tasks that exist within your workplace, not just for one role, but maybe multiple roles that exist across various departments. This is going to give us a much broader understanding of your workplace, the culture of the workplace, the unwritten rules that exist within that workplace, which actually we find is often the biggest barrier for people entering employment, because you're going far deeper than what a job description would ever give you. You're really understanding what makes the workplace tick. You're understanding the different personalities that exist. You're understanding what quality assurance processes, what training exists within that workplace. And like I said, those unwritten rules. So where do you go when you first arrive? Where do you hang your coat at? Where do you go for your lunch break? Where, if you're a smoker, where do you go for a fag at break time? All of those little things you would never see written down on a job description. But a job analysis would give us that.
Yeah.
And staff go into a workplace and maybe do some shadowing work with various people across various different departments, learning what that job looks like, learning how those tasks are then performed. And sometimes this takes days. Sometimes it's just a few hours. Again, it's all dependent on the business, what the employer can give us in terms of time and resource. But that essentially allows us to make an informed decision on who the best job match is. So we've been to, say, a local supermarket, and we've done the job analysis across various different departments, the shop floor, back of house, the cashiers, and on the checkouts, within the clothing department. You've done all of that, and you've identified with that business, with that employer, that there are vacancies on the shop floor and in the warehouse at the back. We would then bring that job analysis back to the team, share that at what we have is opportunity roundtable discussions every week, where job coaches are able to bring together all the various job analysis that they may have performed that week and job opportunities that they may have sourced. And that way we're able to then match the vocational profile that's being performed for various people we support alongside the job analysis for that particular business. And through that, it's almost a bit of a jigsaw. You can see where it kind of connects. You can see the areas on why this would be the right job match. Why is this the right job for that particular person based off this vocational profile? And really importantly, the vocational profile and the job match together where it doesn't quite match, that's going to tell you, okay, this is where we can then begin to build an in-work support plan. This is what training is going to be required for this particular individual to bridge some of those skills gaps. Then it's about going back to that employer. So look, we've got X, Y, and Z person that we think are brilliant for this particular job and your business. This is where it will really work. These are the strengths. These are the areas where we're going to need to put in a little bit of support and extra training, perhaps using some of the training and systematic instruction techniques that we talked about earlier. That then becomes a bit of a negotiation at times with the employer. Sometimes it could be, that's going to work, and we can provide some of that training through natural support that exists within the workplace. So through X, Y, and Z colleague that would work with that person, or you as the job coach can come in and we can put together an in-work support plan that's going to work for all of us. Sometimes it might not necessarily work. It might be actually this is a really key component of this job. And we need this person that comes into this workplace to be doing that. That's maybe where we're going back and going, well, we need to then reassess this job match. Maybe we need to look at somebody else. Or we're having a conversation on job carving. Maybe we're able to take elements away from that job and bring in certain parts of a job that exists maybe within a different department or within someone else's role. And we're creating something quite bespoke that matches the individual's skill sets and abilities, but also is hitting a very genuine business need within that business. And that's how you create long-term sustainable employment for people and businesses. And that ultimately is what that job analysis allows you to do. If you don't do that job analysis, you can't do any of that.
Yeah, that's job match.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what that is.
Okay.
And so yes, it kind of it saves time and money, doesn't it? It saves time, money, emotional heartache, everything that could happen. We're not saying that it's like a completely full, life happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really. So even if we vocational profile, we do that really well, match really well, there's still things that can happen. We're not saying that everything for all eternity is going to be great, but what we're doing with this process is trying to minimize as much as possible the cost of going into work and then not being able to sustain that work, the employer not getting what they need, so that everybody can move forward really. That's, I guess, what we're trying to do with that stage there. Okay, stage number 5, in-work support and career development is the final stage. So we've got someone in work, we've succeeded in the stages 1 to 4, and somebody is going to start, or it has started at their employment. How do we navigate this stage?
I mean, for me, this stage links really closely with the job matching and everything that's just come before. So, I mean, all of the stages do, they flow into each other. But that job analysis and that job match helps you to build that in-work support plan, which is essentially what the stage 5 is. So in-work support might be exactly what Ramsay's just talked about. There might be elements of a role that we need to go in and support a job seeker to learn or to understand using the TSI, the training by systematic instruction techniques, to really break down some of those more challenging elements of a role to help the job seeker succeed. In-work support looks different for every single person. So it's very person-centred. The whole supported employment model is very person-centred. Somebody might just need a little bit of emotional support, a telephone call, a check-in to make sure that how they've got on that day. Somebody might need a much more structured in-work support plan with a job coach attending work with them, which we would plan with the employer and the individual to make sure that it works for everybody. Everybody's got those roles and responsibilities, which we would then fade out eventually to enable that the job seeker to be in work independently. And then we do in-work reviews, so that we sit down with the employer, with the individuals, and review the process. So how is it going? What's working well? What do we need to improve on? Is there any elements that aren't working for you? How can we help to make this better? Let's celebrate the successes as well within that, and talk about career development within that as well. So those reviews happen monthly or more frequently if you needed them to, but usually monthly up until a 6-month point, at which point we would hope that the job seeker would be independent and that everything would be working really well, so that we could then take a step back. So the career development can come in to those reviews, because actually that job seeker might be thriving in their role on the shop floor, but actually there's a chance for some checkout work. So a career development for them might be that they learn the role on the checkouts, or they progress into a supervisor role, or more hours, anything like that. So
it's so important, career development, because it's no different for the people that we support. For a disabled person, you need to make sure that it's constantly talked about, and sometimes we do have to advocate for people at times, and we sell ourselves really as a time and limited service. As long as we've got funding, as long as we're a service,
as long as we've got the money,
we should, we're there to support you whether you're in work or not.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that have gone into work, and we do receive phone calls from either the employer, because again, the employer is always a customer of the service. We could receive a phone call from the employer. We could receive an email or a call from the person that we support, who's been, we stopped supporting maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and they say, there's been a slight change in the business. I may need some extra support with handling this change. Can you come in and do that? Of course we can. It might be there's a role that's available in this other department that I'd really like to progress into. Can you come in and help me discuss that with my employer? Absolutely. Equally, the employer, and there's loads of examples of this where an employer rings up and says, X-person, Bob's getting on great in this department, and I think they've got the ability to progress, and I'd like them to go into this particular role. The in-work support planning phase that we went through was really valuable for us as a business, where we drew upon your specialisms and your skill sets, but you were able to bring in some of that natural support and upskill some of our workforce to then better support our colleague. Can you come in and do that as we want, because we want to progress this person into this particular role? And that's why we always talk about career development once that person's in the job. It doesn't just stop at, great, the person's in work, they've achieved that. Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll tick that off as an outcome and off we go. And we move on to the next person. No, it's constant. It's got to be that continuous service that we provide for the person and the employer.
What we're showing, that value that we've placed on that person as they come through the doors right at the beginning, and saying, actually, these are all the things that you can do. That's when we, career development, we're saying, actually, we have even higher aspirations for you. If you want to do this, we will look at how we can help support you get there. Some people don't want to, some people are quite happy where they are, and that is absolutely fine as well. It suits their lives, their families, whatever's going on with them. But then others do have those aspirations, and they just need, the coaches and the team to kind of be behind them and say, actually, that's what you want to do. Let's figure out how that's gonna work. With your employer, either with that employment, maybe might be something different. It just, but always having those conversations, and not kind of, supporting the misconception that people with disabilities or mental health issues can't work, because, they can.
Absolutely.
And I think as well, the career development in the in-work support stage, so like we've just said, it doesn't stop once somebody's got a job. It links right back to that employer engagement. The employer is just as important to us as the individuals. They're both our customers, essentially. So it's about like retaining that relationship, always being there to support if it's needed. And then, the employer trusts in the process. They can see the benefits. Then there might be another opportunity that comes up, and they might approach you with, actually, we've got another vacancy. So it's about really keeping that relationship alive, and just, yes, that person might be successfully, let's say, becoming the manager of the local supermarket, and they've worked their way up, but that relationship with the employer, they might not need our support anymore, but the employer is still key to us.
Exactly.
I think that just highlights our aspirations for people. Are you saying that? We and maybe this is a nice place for us to end this, as again, on one of those sort of core values, is that we believe that everyone can work with the right support in the right job at the right time.
Absolutely. We've kind of, not quite a whistle stop, but we've got the broad brushstrokes of the 5 stages, and I think people listening will get a really good idea of what these stages entail and what it would mean for them, whether it's a job seeker listening, a job coach listening, team leaders listening, what it would mean for everybody involved in the process. Have you got any kind of final words that you would give to other supported employment services across the country, because we're based in Durham, and the work we do is amazing. People can see the work that's being done here. But for maybe services who are just starting, or job coaches who are just starting, any kind of advice you would give. Ramsay, maybe you could talk to like the services, and Mel, you could talk to maybe the job coaches.
Okay. One piece of advice. We talked at the beginning about the importance of accessibility of your service, and I think part of that, and whether you're a small service working within a small charity, or you're a local authority or a third sector organisation, I think it's all about building a brand that people understand and recognise, and how accessible that is within your local communities for your job seekers and families and support networks, and also employers. And I think investing time, it doesn't necessarily have to be money. I think just time in building that and building that sort of that sort of power of being local, kind of ethos into your team, you'll begin to reap the rewards, I think, from that.
For me, final words would be to trust the model. So if we're talking to new coaches who are coming into supported employment, the model works. It's there for a reason, and actually when you follow it, you will see the benefits of it. Some people in the very beginning stages, wanted to miss bits out or skip parts, and actually it's there for a reason. And it really does work. You've just got to trust and believe in it.
Yeah.
And if you follow it, then you'll reap the rewards.
That's great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It's always a joy to talk to you, isn't it? We've kind of had a team meeting, haven't we?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. It's just nice to just say it out loud.
Yeah, sometimes it is, because we're always in the doing, sometimes in the weeds of the work, and sometimes it's nice to kind of look up and just say it. Will you come back?
Yeah, definitely. There's just a ridiculous amount of things that we just didn't even say.
Exactly. So you'll have to come back. So we'll have to plan another one, or another few. But thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to Voices of Supported Employment. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to download, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more people and spread the message of inclusion. Until next time, let's continue working together to create a workforce where everyone knows that they are safe, seen, and supported.